have one resolution to go into executive session.
Resolution authorizing an executive session at the June 22nd, 2015 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees to discuss the following matters: attorney-client privilege, contract negotiations, village hall reuse, attorney-client privilege, personnel, contract negotiations, trustee vacancy, PBA, FMBA, fire department personnel.
And I have one more under attorney-client privilege, a conflict of interest. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? We will return back out at 8 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting back to order. Board of Trustees, June 22nd, 2015. It is 8:05 p.m. Can I have a roll call, please?
Village President Collins.
Here.
Trustee Clark.
Still here.
Trustee Davis Ford.
Here.
Trustee Livingston is absent. Trustee Rosner.
Here.
Trustee Schnall.
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mr. Lerner.
Here.
Mr. Rother.
Here.
Susan Caljean, present.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to be followed by a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So we have some announcements. First, South by South Orange Festival is a 3-day festival of arts, ideas, music, and exploration. Friday, June 26th through Sunday, June 28th. Tickets are on sale at the SOPAC box office. You can call 973-313-2787 or go online to www.southbysouthOrange.org for more information. Next, the South Orange Village Center Alliance announces the return of the ever-popular South Orange Farmers Market. The market is open weekly on Wednesdays from 2 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. in the Sloan Street lot across from the New Jersey Transit Station. All of your favorite farmers are back at the market in addition to some great new vendors. This market has everything you need to make your perfect 4-course meal. So be sure to visit the market every Wednesday through October. Next, the community pool will be open beginning on June 27th, 2015, Monday through Friday at 12 noon. Weekends open at 10 o'clock a.m. Congratulations to the South Orange Rescue Squad for winning the $25,000 Neighborhood Assistance Grant from State Farm. More than 4,000 applications from deserving causes were submitted to be recipients of the grant, and from those, the South Orange Rescue Squad was chosen to be in the top 200. It was then the support of the community through online voting that pushed South Orange Rescue Squad to the top of the list and ensured that they were among the top 40 causes, each of which will get a $25,000 grant. Next, curbside recycling collection will be on Thursday starting July 9th. For more information, go to our website, www.southorange.org, or check the gas light. Finally, South Orange is very excited to announce we have been honored as one of the 2015 Playful City USA communities. Kaboom and the Humana Foundation recognized 241 cities and towns from across the country, making play a priority in their communities. To learn more about these cities, see the full list of the 241 communities named 2015 Playful City USA honorees, or to gather more information on the Playful City USA program, visit www.playfulcityusa.org. And on number 6, I want to thank, I believe it was Pete Travers from our Recreation Department who did the work to submit this application, and so obviously the Board of Trustees is very appreciative for his work in helping us be recognized as a playful city.
Sheena, can you also thank all the people that voted for, all the individuals who voted for the rescue squad?
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. So, and many of you heard Captain Dan Cohen thank folks via his social media and through the South Orange Rescue Squad website. Basically, they had submitted this grant application. They were named one of the finalists, and it took kind of the community rallying behind the rescue squad, voting online through social media to keep them in the top 40 causes. And so it was really a community-wide effort to ensure that they received $25,000. And for any nonprofit organization or anybody who's been involved with a nonprofit, you know how much $25,000 means. And there's perhaps no more deserving group than our South Orange Rescue Squad to receive such a large contribution from State Farm. Next, we have the public comments section of our agenda. As a reminder, please state your name and your address for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Mr. Lerner, I believe, will have the 3-minute. There we go. So for anybody who would like to be heard, just please come up to the microphone in the front. Okay, seeing no speakers, I'd like to close the public comments section of the agenda. Next, we have the approval of minutes. We have regular meeting minutes, April 13th and 27th, and also May 11th and May 18th. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, and we have an ordinance for first reading.
Yes, that's an ordinance we would like to have carried to the next regular meeting. There is a question that I have that I want to run by OLS before we move to adopt it.
Okay, would you like us to just read it and table it for the time being, or just?
That would be fine.
Okay, Sue, can you please read?
2015-11, introduction and first reading of an ordinance authorizing the Board of Trustees to file a petition with the legislature of the state of New Jersey for the adoption of a special law to authorize the amendment of the special charter governing the Township of South Orange Village.
To Mr. Rother's point, some questions were raised by the chair of our Legal and Personnel Committee, and we want to make sure before we transmit any final charter revisions to the state that all the things that OLS came back with, that we're able to make those adjustments before transmitting it back to them again. Can I have a motion to table?
I move to table.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Clark?
Yep.
Trustee Davis Ford?
Yes.
Trustee Levinson is absent. Trustee Rosner?
Yes.
Trustee Schnall?
Yes.
Thank you.
And we have a few items, a few resolutions on consent agenda.
Resolutions 2015-144 through 2015-150 are placed on the consent agenda.
Are there any questions or comments from the trustees? Seeing none, can I have a motion?
I move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Davis Ford?
Yes.
Trustee Levinson is absent. Trustee Rosner?
Yes.
Trustee Schnall?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next, we have a village president appointment. This is the designation of the village president to serve as the emergency management coordinator for the Township of South Orange Village. As you may recall, during my last report, I shared with the Board of Trustees that during our Public Safety Committee meeting, we had agreed that I would serve in the role of OEM coordinator, but the responsibilities as a part of the coordinator would actually be our deputy village administrator, Adam Lerner, who serves as a deputy OEM coordinator. Under state guidelines, the person who is assuming the role of OEM coordinator needs to be a resident of South Orange, and currently that's being debated right now. Obviously, the board would support any measures to allow people outside of South Orange to serve in this role, but for the time being, I will be naming myself with the support of the Board of Trustees, but really the village president's role will be that of a public information officer and communicating back and forth with the public during a state of emergency. The actual logistics will be run by Mr. Lerner in conjunction with all the other deputy OEM coordinators, which are the department heads, police, fire, rescue, etc. That does not require a vote. Next, we have resolutions for separate action.
Resolution 2015-151, authorizing supplemental temporary appropriations for current year 2015.
Mr. Lewis, would you just go over a brief explanation of this for the public?
Yeah, this is just until we finally adopt our municipal budget. This provides sort of ongoing funds to allow us. It's based on the original temporary budget was 26.25%, covered the first 3 months, and then we adopted in 2-month increments thereafter. We do anticipate for the July 13th meeting having our budget, hopefully prepared and ready to be introduced. As discussed at the last meeting with the change in village presidents, there was some changes in the originally proposed budget, the original one having certain priorities and initiatives of the former village president, but so this just allows us to keep paying bills in the interim until this gets us 2 more months.
Are there any questions? Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Davis Ford?
Yes.
Trustee Levinson is absent. Trustee Rosner?
Yes.
Trustee Schnall?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolution 2015-152, pursuant to the village charter to fill vacancy on the Board of Trustees.
So as a follow-up to this item, during my last village president's report, I had communicated that we are basically looking at kind of the provisions within our existing charter versus those recommendations that a charter review commission had put forth a couple years ago. Under guidance of our legal counsel, following up with the state, is currently we need to abide by what is currently on our books within our existing charter, which states that the individual appointed to my vacated seat, which happened when I took my oath of office, I believe it was May 19th, will serve for the unexpired term, which is through May 2017. And with that said, the Board of Trustees would like to put forward Mr. Jeffrey DeBowie to fill the unexpired term of former trustee Sheena Collum, being myself. Is there discussion amongst the board? Comments, discussion?
I'll go first. I've known Jeff a very long time, and he's served on the Parking Authority as a commissioner for many years and chaired it for several years. He's been involved in lots of various committees and participated in the public, and and he's helped me personally with many issues that I've had in discussing, and he's also helped with the budget issues I've discussed, obviously things that were public, not closed session things. He's just been a truly great person in town and a volunteer who's been active in town for probably close to 20 years now, and I welcome him to being on the board.
I would just, in addition to the expertise and experience that Trustee Rosner has shared, I just want to say I think Jeff, his character is very much the type of person who we want to have, someone who is independent in his thinking. He's got good judgment, and he certainly, because of his exposure and time here, I think he will be an excellent asset. He also, by the way, one of the more challenging aspects of this role is the time consumption, and because he has a little bit freedom in his days, I think he makes an excellent candidate.
I would also just point out that I think that as a town, we are fortunate in that we had a number of individuals who we could look to for this, and spirited discussion around that. So I think we are fortunate to have a populace with a great number of skills and opportunities, let's say. But I'm looking forward to working with Jeff, and I think it'll be a great asset.
I would not repeat everything that was said by the other trustees because I agree with it. I just would like to add this small thing. I know Jeff, and I like him. I like his work ethic. I like his intelligence, and I like his experience that he will bring to the board. But what's really important to me is that he'll be joining this board, which I have a tremendous amount of respect for. We work hard. We don't always agree on everything, but when we do disagree, we do it professionally and respectfully, and also that our residents will be proud of the way that we deliberate. And Jeff will fit right in with this board, and we'll work collaboratively together, respectfully, do a lot of hard work, and when we do disagree, we'll disagree respectfully. And for that, I look forward to having him join us.
I'll certainly echo all the statements of my colleagues on the board. I think one thing that's really important is looking strategically at what the board is going to be working on over the next 2 years, in my case 4 years, and how different people play different roles as a part of this governing body. For those of you who know Jeff, you would know that he has a very strong financial background. As we're looking at shared services, as we're looking at our facilities planning, as we're looking at the long-term growth of this community and being a lot more efficient and cost-effective in what we're doing, a skill set like Mr. DeBowie's is almost unmatched, so that we hope that he's able to integrate himself into the workings of all these various committees. Obviously, his role on the Parking Authority as a treasurer, as commissioner, as the chairman, he has a lot of background in that. And he also, I met Jeff when he was a volunteer with our Main Street South Orange program, which ultimately became our South Orange Village Center Alliance. So he has worn several different hats. He has been a tremendous volunteer. And I think I speak for everyone when I note that he is a man of tremendous values and integrity and will serve this community, I know, with a lot of fire in the belly for the next 2 years. And it is definitely a privilege welcoming him to this Board of Trustees. And with that said, is there a motion?
I move.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Levinson is absent. Trustee Rosner?
Yes.
Trustee Schnall?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Davis Ford?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have the approval of bills. So I guess I have a point of inquiry. The chairman of our Finance and IT Committee is not here, so how would we delegate this responsibility?
To the administrator, would that?
I can move it, but I can ask a question first, too.
Okay.
You know, the chairperson did email some questions about the bills list. I think they were all sent back to him an answer, but I don't know if any further questions. So if we could just withhold the checks on those questions until you talk to them, and we'll move forward with the rest of the bills list. And this was the bills list audited by the village treasurer dated June 22nd, 2015. Trustees have been provided a copy of the bills list prior to the meeting for examination, so I move.
And second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Trustee Rosner?
Yes.
Trustee Schnall?
Yes.
Trustee Clark?
Yes.
Trustee Davis Ford?
Yes.
Trustee Levinson is absent. Thank you.
Okay, next we have the reports, and I will begin with my own. So, Village Hall, I can go ahead and close this. So, Village Hall status and next steps. First, I'd like to thank everybody who was able to join us for the June 15th Community Forum. It was a quick turnaround. I think we got to hear a lot of different things that the community had to offer. The board had, following that meeting, also received 2 formal opinions, both from our South Orange Village Center Alliance organization and also from our development committee. Over the past maybe 10 plus days, the board has been diligently working with our redevelopment council and our professionals, mapping out various cost projections, looking at a lot of the concerns that residents had raised regarding both the adaptive reuse proposals and also recognizing that there is a renovation in play as well. Originally we had thought through this timeline, and that at this meeting being June 22nd, it would be appropriate to be able to share some financial calculations, also make a decision on what direction to move forward in. The trustees at this point are not able to make a determination because of a lot of the issues that were raised. I want to re-emphasize that there's a lot of different factors at play. There was a lot of issues that the community had raised, and there was a lot of if scenarios that we have to be very diligent about. I have called a special meeting for next Monday, June 29th, that will begin at 8:00 p.m. We will likely schedule a executive session prior to that, beginning at roughly 6:30 or so. And at that point, you will know the direction that the Board of Trustees is moving in. At that point in time, it's still very preliminary. Once we set direction, it will be either accepting the renovations. All of that has been laid out publicly. There's information on the website. We know what the renovation bids are. We know what the timetable is. All of that is available to the public. These 2 different alternative adaptive reuse proposals created a kind of groundswell of new questions that we have to evaluate, and we have to be very diligent in those evaluations. So what we would do is put 3 resolutions on the Board of Trustee agenda, one being adopting kind of the renovation and moving forward with the lowest bidder. The other 2 alternatives would be a conditional redevelopers agreement, both with South Orange Hotel Group or with Landmark Hospitality. At that point, the community will have an indication of what the next steps are, but we will still be in active negotiations if the Board of Trustees chooses. So there's a lot of ifs. I'm sorry to use so many ifs. But if the Board of Trustees chooses to move in that direction, there will still be a lot of active negotiations. There will still need to be a redevelopers agreement. There would still need to be planning board approvals. So it would play out in a different path from the renovation. So at this point in time, unless there's any objection from the trustees, we will continue answering all the questions that you may have. Again, I appreciate you doing the due diligence and making sure that before any vote is formally taken, that all the things individually that you're interested in understanding better gets answered. But because we know that we have to be mindful of the bids, the renovation bids, I would like to have this special meeting on the 29th, and we will put all three resolutions on the agenda, at which point there will be the public discussion, and ultimately you will decide what direction to move in.
No objection.
Okay. Is there anything, Mr. Lewis, that you wanted to add to that?
No, other than, and I need to follow up, I did, and as I informed you, I had a verbal conversation with the low bidder and the second bidder. Verbally, I got consent. The current extension runs through June 26th. I asked if they would extend through June 30th to facilitate that meeting on June 29th. I got a verbal okay. I did send out a letter, an additional document, not received that back yet, but I will certainly follow up in the morning.
Okay, I'll re-emphasize to the public, too, is that we're feeling pretty good right now as a governing body because we have a lot of really good choices on the table. Again, with the renovation, I think the due diligence and the process has been followed very, very well, so it's very clear-cut how that would move forward. And any pursuit of an adaptive reuse, there's just a lot on the table that needs to be evaluated, reevaluated. It's why we bring in redevelopment council, professionals. Obviously, we're looking at numbers with pro formas from the two different proposers. We need to double-check all of that. It's fact-checking and then double-checking those facts. And so there's a lot at play right now, but I'm working, and the administration is working very quickly to make sure that the trustees and all of their questions are answered to the best of our ability so that we can have closure on this issue by the end of June. I would also encourage the community to keep sending feedback. This has actually been a really good process, both from the community forum to social media to Maplewood Online to just the emails that you're sending in. It's really raising good questions that we may not have thought about, and it's also kind of giving us the pulse of what you see the future of this building being. So I don't want to play down its importance or its significance or just overall how important this as a community, the building, and how we move forward is for all of us and each of you. So thank you very much for that. Expect 3 resolutions to appear on our agenda at the June 29th meeting, at which point the trustees will be voting on which direction to be moving forward in. Next, we had another, I get elected village president, and the first thing I do is hold 2 community forums in the same week. So we had, the next discussion was 298 Walton Avenue. So again, similar to what I said with the Village Hall forum, is thank you to all the people who turned out to that. Where we ended up in that forum, and the reason that we had it was to really bring the different stakeholders together, because on one side we had folks who really want to see it turn back into an animal shelter, preferably a no-kill animal shelter. And then we also had, obviously, the folks of the Farrellfield Neighborhood Association who have put forth several different proposals, have approached the board trying to look at an adaptive reuse for that site as well. Kind of merging all of the different things that people had to say so everybody could hear from different concerns was really helpful to the trustees who attended. It was myself, Trustee Rosner, Trustee Levison, and Trustee Clark. We were not going to make any recommendations at this meeting. Obviously, again, it goes back into facilities planning, which plays a larger role in this entire discussion of how we're moving forward with all our various buildings, the costs associated with them, where there's opportunities for shared services, for consolidation, for insourcing or outsourcing. So we're still looking at all the different models. We're also talking to the surrounding towns on where their needs are, whether they're interested in purchasing services from South Orange for an ACO, for sheltering services. One of the things that I am interested in, and I'm talking to a few other mayors about this, because there's no other village presidents but me, but whether you could run a municipal pound and also enter into a service level agreement with a nonprofit organization that would help get up the adoption rates that typically aren't there when you run a municipal pound. So there's kind of hybrid models that are out there, and then we're also kind of looking at the feasibility of some of the options that were put forth towards us, more towards a community center. There was a suggestion for village offices to be there. Right now, I don't think any consideration is odd. We have space there. We want to best utilize the space. We want to make sure that it's cost efficient for the village to use it the right way. So that conversation will certainly continue. Obviously, it's not kicking the can. We're focusing on Village Hall first. Once we have some closure to this issue, we can move back to discussing what's going to happen at that site. Is there anything that I missed from that?
I would just reiterate that Again, the input from the residents and the public in general is helpful, and frankly, the blue sky thinking is helpful as well. Obviously, at some point we have to crack numbers on each one of those ideas, but it is important to get the ideas to begin with. So.
Anything else? Okay. And number 3, I'm going to leave for the public safety report. It kind of overlapped. Both myself and Trustee Rosner submitted it, so I'll wait for his report. New Jersey Transit meeting update. So I had my first meeting with Mr. Lewis joined with me with some of the New Jersey Transit officials, some of the items that the community had brought forth, especially during the campaign, also things that the trustees had brought forward to me. I wanted to begin the discussion on that. One of the items was a parking swap, which is really kind of something that Trustee Rosner has been looking at, is trying to relocate some of the surface parking of commuters into a deck so that we could free it up for shopper parking. It's kind of a holistic look at our parking scenario where people are best, where it's best to put vehicles and the efficient use of each one of our parking spaces. So we are trying to actively work on a parking swap, which could take some of the commuter parking, again, all day vehicles that sit in the lot, move them into the new deck and be able to free that up for shopper parking. There were some aesthetic things that we went over. Obviously, most of you have seen what it looks like under the 2 trestles. Obviously, there's a need for big improvements that needs to go through a approval process because the train station is historic. SHPO gets involved. You have to make sure anything that you do is approved by them, even just slapping on a coat of paint to make it look a little bit better. So where we came out on that was perhaps we can get the coat of paint and do something similar to what the Gateway did, was they attach murals rather than painting murals on the walls. So we're going to continue that conversation first with one of the owners of the Gateway, which is Ed Ayuso, who had the idea for under the trestle on South Orange Avenue, and also working with SOPAC, who also want to see some beautification happen under the trestle that gives access to a beautiful performing arts center. Next was the discussion about capacity, which I find to be a little bit more alarming, and I will, at this point, I haven't had a chance to really formulate a position statement for the board to consider submitting to the state, but I do think that it's urgent. Capacity issues. We wonder about growth and development and redevelopment and our ability to provide good public transportation into the city. So many of the people who are currently buying in South Orange and see this community as a destination is built around the fact that we have an amazing train station that gets you into New York City in 30 minutes. From what we heard back from our commuters, there's certainly capacity issues. We've heard this also from our Village Center Alliance, looking at all those challenges, and there was no good answer. Speaking with the folks at New Jersey Transit on what to do about this. Obviously, the Transportation Trust Fund is underfunded. There's no long-term plan for how we're going to be able to move all these folks in and out of the city, and it's alarming. It's depressing. I wish there were more options, but right now I think the best that we can do as a community, especially as a commuter community, is lobby to the best of our abilities. Obviously, this is tied into the gas tax, all these different funding mechanisms for how we provide better public transportation. The irony of everything is that so much of what the state does and the county does and local governments do is to create incentives, tax incentives to locate people near transportation, to move jobs towards transportation, to have affordable housing near transportation. We are in what the former state development and redevelopment plan calls a growth area. That is what smart growth is all about. And so we are actively being a transit village, a commuter town. We're bringing in a lot of investment, and if our public transportation isn't able to handle capacity, whether it's here in South Orange or the many other train stops along the line, then we've got a really big issue on our hands. I know that Maplewood, I've been watching their township committee meetings, don't ask me why, but I find it very informative to know what they're talking about, and they're having exactly the same issue. So I would like the board to consider, and I'll take a first draft at it. I don't even think we need a resolution or anything like that. Really addressing this current concern to our legislators. Obviously, Trustee Deborah Davis-Ford has raised this several times now, and I don't think there's any good answer. But the Transportation Trust Fund, making sure that we have good public transportation, we're able to have the capacity that we need for all the economic development opportunities that we're looking at is paramount. And so with that said, are there any specific questions anybody has? There were some small items with installing the mirror, I believe, on 3rd Street,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
they agreed to, and there were some cosmetic items, but really the big ones were parking swap.
The ticket agent gave me a couple more to add to suggestions, which I'll just email to you rather than bring them up here, but I agree. And one thing that they did do last year was add a couple more trains to Hoboken, which I know is not preferential to everybody, but it was one of the concessions that we said you have to do this because at least it's an alternative for a lot of people who work downtown or even, any place. For anybody who goes to Penn Station every day or any part-time, it's a nightmare going there. So having any alternative is possible. And the other thing we also asked them to do is consider on having a real express bus. The 107 bus is nice, but it's not a direct express bus. And we think there'll be enough use that it could also supplement, since we have the bus stop there and we have passengers there. If they had a true express bus, it could also relieve some of the congestion.
So instead of me, I'm thinking about what Trustee Schnall calls leverage. Trustee Rosner, could you talk to the Transit Advisory Committee and see if they could help us draft a resolution, and then we shoot to introduce that in July?
Yes.
They know probably better than myself some of the specific things and concerns, and we can bring that to the full board. And I would certainly like to go down to Trenton, bring anybody who would like to come, but I think this issue is critical. Next, we have the South Orange Maplewood Clergy Association. This is just an FYI. So I was speaking to Reverend Richardson, who informed me that the clergy from both South Orange and Maplewood have kind of formalized working together in the form of an association. Obviously, they had a wonderful vigil last week. It was very inspiring. It was wonderful to be there for the folks in Charleston, South Carolina, the solidarity. It was just a really beautiful event. And they want to work closely with the governing bodies, both in South Orange and Maplewood. And I just wanted to update you and let you know good things are coming. And as we've used the neighborhood association model, the neighborhood watch model, just the capacity building of being able to distribute information to some key people who can then distribute it to even more people, and having the clergy on board is wonderful. And I believe they're setting up a luncheon to meet with some of the elected officials, both from South Orange and Maplewood, and kind of create a plan on how this relationship can work and build. So I'm appreciative to them, and I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes.
I'd just like to add that I was so proud of this organization. The two cities responded, very quickly to the real national tragedy in South Carolina, and had a vigil in front of the train trestle. And people of all backgrounds, faiths, and experiences came together to pray for those who were lost in this awful stain and national tragedy that we experienced last week. And so I'm just so proud of this organization.
And lastly, number 6. So this was Pride Month, and a big day is coming shortly, and so I just wanted to keep people posted on that. For those of you who follow North Jersey Pride, Decision Day, hashtag Decision Day, there will be a rally. It's anticipated for next Monday, which is the 29th, and it's going to take place at 6:30 p.m. on Maplewood Town Hall. Obviously, it's great to see South Orange and Maplewood working together, so whatever the result of the Supreme Court ruling, we hope that those who have been very supportive, and especially in communities like South Orange and Maplewood who embrace our wonderful diversity, that we stand together. So stay tuned. Obviously, we don't know exactly when this is going to happen, but we are anticipating next Monday, 6:30, Maplewood Town Hall, the front steps, so please join us there. Are there any questions for me?
If they delay that decision, have you picked somebody to phone it into us if we're already in session?
Yeah, I know. It's kind of a moving target right now, and I don't even know if it's definitely going to be on the 29th. It could be this Friday, but basically they've secured approval from Maplewood that whatever the day is that the decision comes down, it'll be 6:30 that night. Unfortunately, if it is during the special meeting, hopefully we can send a representative outside the governing body to make sure South Orange is represented there. Next, on to the village administrator's report.
Yeah, thank you. So, the first item I listed was recycling, and this was actually mentioned during the announcements, but I wanted to explain it a little bit further. As many people will recall, we went out for our single-stream recycling contract. The bids came in. We, at the time, wanted to stay with our sort of traditional Wednesday collection date. In recent, really over almost since the inception and more frequently recently, we've seen many times where certainly during inclement weather and other times just due to volume and other things, our recycling collection is either run very late on Wednesdays or more often than not carried over into Thursdays. That has created some, logistical issues, I think, for us. Calls at Village Hall. Are they coming? Are they not coming? When are they coming? And trying to get the word out. Yeah, keep it out. No, they're coming tomorrow. So we did approach our collection company, Giordano. Basically, they explained to us that their current schedule, they had 7 towns on Wednesdays and 3 on Thursdays, and based on the trucks they had, the staffing they had, they suggested their best solution would be for us to switch to Thursdays. We reviewed this, reviewed it with Public Works representatives, with our director, Tom Machete, who's also our recycling coordinator. Ultimately decided this was probably in the best interest of South Orange, so we've agreed. And so from now through the end of the year and likely continuing after that, our single stream recycling will be, it's still going to be on the every other week. It's going to be on Thursdays instead of Wednesdays. It'll be the same weeks that the Wednesdays were. And we did that on purpose, not move it up a day, but to put it the day after, so that as people, came to learn of this, if they put it on Wednesday, they still wouldn't miss it because it'd just be the next day. So it will be Thursdays from here on out. We have put it on the website. It will be in the Gaslight. There's a new calendar that shows all the dates, both on the website, will be in the Gaslight. We will get it out through social media. We will likely send out a blast email via our notification system. The only exception is on Thanksgiving Day. They will pick up on Friday. But other than that, it should be fairly seamless. But I did want to explain to the public that we did it. It was in response to our concerns about the service. They have assured us that by making this switch, there should be few, if any, times, barring a complete weather, significant weather incident, that we should ever drag as late as we used to or carry over into the next day. The next item is a budget update. I kind of touched on this earlier. We do anticipate having the budget sort of finalized. I've been working with the village president to make sure and go through her priorities, initiatives versus the former village president's initiatives, but it's 99% done, and we anticipate having this on for first reading and introduction on July 13th. Finally, the road improvements update. I wasn't out there today, but it was supposed to start today. The curbing contractor should have mobilized today to do the curbing on Mountain, Crestwood, Northwoods, and Great Hills, which you'll all recall are the North Newstead roads that are really in very, very poor condition. The curbing component of that is scheduled to take 6 to 8 weeks. Immediately upon completion of that, there's a separate contractor that will come in and mill and overlay the roads. The repaving of the roads, that's another week or two. So I think by the end of August, we should fully anticipate those roads being completed, totally completed. Terrell, which is a road that, the section of Terrell, we have another DOT grant for. Those plans and specifications are now completed by the village engineer's office. We're going out to bid for that shortly. So that project will be underway and will be completed this year. Also, Toulouse, which is another road that is in very, very poor condition. I think we're sensitive to that. Village engineer has also finalized plans. Again, that requires more than just the county co-op curbing and overlay. It's a complete reconstruction. Those plans will be finalized. We anticipate going out for bid for that soon. So that road will be done. Again, also Terrell and Toulouse this year. And then still sort of waiting in the wings, pending a couple different developments. There's Blanchard and Crest that we've previously been working on. The engineer has. They've run into some issues with some walls. We hope to get that done. And then Hartford, there's some issues with the curbing replacement and the State Historic Trust Office in their approval of what we are proposing in terms of the curb replacement. But optimistically, those will all three get done as well this year. But I want to give that update on the roads. That was all I had.
Are there any questions for Mr. Lewis?
None.
Okay. Next, moving on to Village Council report, Mr. Rother.
Yes, a quick report on the transitioning of our water system to from East Orange Water Commission to New Jersey American Water. The design of the new interconnection is approximately a third of the way through, and that involves the construction of a new 12-inch main from the New Jersey American main on South Ridgewood in Maplewood, running over to a location on our DPW property for the construction of a pump station there, and then running up Lenox to the reservoir on South Orange Avenue. I should note that the location of that pump station has been a matter of discussion with the Farrell Field people, and they understand and agree with the location where that pump station is going to be. New Jersey American has asked us to have a meeting to more fully discuss the design of that pump station with the local neighbors, and I understand Trustees Clark and Levison are going to organize that kind of a community meeting to have that discussion. And New Jersey American has also asked for a meeting with the planning board as early as August, if there's a meeting there that can be had, certainly no later than September. This is not a required meeting because this project is not subject to the zoning regulations, but New Jersey American nonetheless wants to do a presentation to the planning board so that all of the issues that the public or members of the planning board would like to have addressed will be addressed. All of this, of course, is rather on a short schedule because the connection has to be finished by January 1, 2017.
And again, those plans were expected in August?
Excuse me?
The plans were expected in August?
Yeah, well, their plans are expected in July with regard to the pump station. Obviously, the plans for the buried main are not going to be the subject of planning board review, but the pump station, its location, its design, all of those good things are going to be subject to comment by the neighbors, and they'll have plans ready for that in July. And then as soon thereafter as they can make a presentation to the planning board, they would like to do that.
Are they going to have a presentation with the neighborhood first before they go to the planning board, or how?
They wanted to have a presentation, and I think that Trustees Clark and Levison had promised them as early as possible that they would get a look at what was going on.
Yeah, I'd start with the neighborhood rather than before the planning board, because if the neighborhood is not happy, then they're going to come to the planning board.
Exactly.
So you might want to talk to them first.
Yeah, that's why it's planned in that sequence, July and then August or September.
Are there any questions for Mr. Rother? Okay, next moving on to the trustee reports. As a reminder, you only see two trustees because we've split it up between the two regular board meetings that we have. Half the trustees go during one meeting, the other half go at the next meeting. So tonight on the report we have Trustee Clark, and we also have Trustee Rosner, who will be speaking on behalf of both the Planning and Zoning Committee, and in the interim he has been serving as our acting Public Safety Committee Chair. So let's get started with Trustee Clark.
All right. In terms of public works and infrastructure and road paving specifically, one that Barry did not mention because it does not fall within our bailiwick is Wyoming Avenue. The county has communicated that they are planning on doing work on the stretch of Wyoming Avenue from South Orange Ave all the way to the border, and they're saying August.
To the which border?
I'm sorry, West Orange border.
Okay.
But they're saying August. We haven't got anything more specific than that at that point. But so for those of you who use that road regularly, plan on a bumpy August and hopefully a less bumpy September. Let's see, most of the capital projects are going along and mostly in waiting mode for people working along those issues. Hopefully residents have been noticing the new garbage cans in the downtown areas and the corresponding recycling bins that go along with them. And we are working on repurposing as many of the old cans as possible. The DPW's pulled all those in. They're going to rehab as many as they can and try to put them elsewhere. Let's see. Community Coalition on Race, they have been busy the past month or two. The Cultural Heritage Festival was June the 6th, and despite the poor weather, the event was pretty successfully attended. The last community conversation on race had over 150 people gathered at Congregation Beth El to listen to Professor Michael Jeffries' presentation on microaggressions, and then to talk in small groups on how to overcome this form of racism. That was a very well-attended event and pretty successful. They also just launched a new event, which they call Coffee House Conversations. It was created in response to residents' requests for more opportunities to discuss issues related to CCR's mission of racial integration, but in more informal kinds of settings. And so the first Coffee House Conversation was June 18th, just the other night, at the RAC, and it was enthusiastically attended, which encourages CCR to develop the program further. Seemed to go over well. The Energy Policy Committee. They will host a related forum to energy at the South by South Orange event. It's called DIY Save Humanity, How to Be an Energy Hero. So I encourage you to go and check that out, as well as many other events at South by South Orange. That's going to be Saturday at 1:30 p.m. at the Gaslight Brewery. That is a shameless self-plug, I will point out. But, you know, these things need to be done sometimes.
Absolutely. If you weren't going to do it, I was going to do it.
Okay. Some of you hopefully also noticed the Essex Community Energy banner, which is now hanging at the Baird Center. It's another project that the Energy Policy Committee has been contributing to, in addition to the Environmental Commission. It basically promotes a statewide program which allows people to receive rebates of up to $5,000 and interest-free financing up to $10,000 for energy upgrades to residential properties. So if you are thinking about trying to improve your home and its energy efficiency, you need insulation, a new boiler, or something like that, I encourage you to check that out. EssexCommunityEnergy.com.
But you can't say that fast 3 times.
Went through that a couple times with him. I lost that argument about what to call it, mostly because I can't say it. The Environmental Commission also been quite busy lately. They have launched a plastics reduction campaign, and they're working in coordination with the Village Center Alliance to try to encourage both residents on an individual level to reduce the amount of plastics they use, but also to work with the Village Center Alliance on businesses in town and identifying opportunities for them to reduce the plastics in, say, takeout containers, that sort of thing. So I'm looking forward to what the study comes up with on that, and moving forward with that one. I'm also glad to say that the Environmental Commission won a small grant to develop something called Your Ecological Address. The Environmental Commission got a small grant from ANJAC, which is the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commissions, to produce the Your Ecological Address in both print and online. And Your Ecological Address is something which will give residents a visual grasp of the key natural features, species, and ecological interactions of their local watershed, which happens to be the East Branch of the Roe River. And just a shout out to Jim McGowan, the chair of the Environmental Commission, because really that's his baby, and he did it all himself. So shout out to Jim. Another thing which will be coming down the pike, hopefully I can bring it to you at not the next special meeting, but the next meeting in July, which will be something coming from the Environmental Commission and the Energy Policy Committees, and it is a resolution for the trustees to basically for our board to support the Renewable Energy Transition Act, which is presently in the state legislature. And that is an act which is trying to encourage the timed and logical adoption of greater amounts of renewable energy in terms of our overall energy profile in the state, and to attach dates to that and actually make it happen. Let's see. Barry also mentioned recycling moving to Thursday as a somewhat segue. We did receive the 2014 total recycling numbers from the DPW, and try to get your heads around this, folks. 28,470 tons of total materials recycled in little old South Orange in 2014. Let's see. It's pretty much a 50-50 split, commercial and residential, about 14,000 tons of commercial, 14,000 plus tons of residential, and that happens to be 2,000 tons more than in 2013. It's kind of staggering when you think of 28,000 tons of recyclable, and that's just recyclable material. I haven't even figured out what the waste is, regular waste, but that's our one very small town in a busy state, so pretty staggering numbers. Anyway, that is that.
That's great. Are there any questions for Trustee Clark? Okay, moving on to Trustee Rosner.
Yeah, the Planning and Zoning Committee met last week, I think it was. One of the issues that's been hanging out there has been that RFP for the master plan, which has been out there for a while. We're going to delay it again for a couple of reasons. One is we have to finalize the budget, because we recognize that the cost is probably going to be much greater than what was allowed in the budget. I think we had $60,000 in the budget, and the cost could easily be double that. And then tied into that, we've also trying to reevaluate how we want to work with our planner. And because we have so many different projects on the table and potential projects coming up, plus the master plan, that we also thought we'd do an RFP for the planner first. Not necessarily the same planner that's there, but it could be that we have now, and it doesn't have to be the same planner as the planning board uses. They could continue with higher gruel, and we could pick someone else. But it's one of the steps that we felt it was important to move forward with at this time. So the plan is to do the RFP for the planner, and we'll have input from someone from the planning board, the Board of Adjustment, and probably the Development Committee, as well as the Planning and Zoning Committee. And then we'll go right after that, because by then the budget should be more close to final, and we can go on with the RFP for the master plan, assuming we find the money in the budget. I'll give that up to the village president.
Thanks.
And also had a representative from one of the members who met with the other neighborhood associations about, because they knew we were considering a master plan RFP, that we include design standards in the master plan, something that we have not had before. Design standards has meant different things to different people. Last time we went through design standards, we could not come to an agreement on what would be design standards, so we'll seek the input from whoever the planner is, whoever wins the two RFPs, to give us more feedback on probably doing some kind of design standards for the central business district, the redevelopment district, more in terms of materials, not necessarily in terms of colors and stuff, but and dealing with other issues that traditionally we have not always dealt with. And if there's no other, and then the other thing is the planning board update was they approved the after a lot of discussion, the issue for the parking was straightened out, and the wellness center / doctor's office at Vos Avenue, 711 Vos Avenue, got their approval, and I assume they'll start construction on the interior construction at some point soon, and move forward with that. I think that was it. Any questions on the planning and zoning issues? Public Safety Committee, we discussed a variety of issues, including the line of sight ordinance that Walter has worked diligently on, and we're finalizing that. And the other thing was the grant, the COPS grant, that potentially gives us another police officer, a young police officer, and the grant would pay, I think it was 75% for the first 3 years, and something after that. But that's the cost becomes ours, and it's at least a 4-year commitment. I'll let Trustee Village President Colin talk about the other part of the grant. Please.
Okay, so I just wanted to clarify a couple things because I believe myself and Maplewood and the Board of Education has received several emails about our response to their public safety forum and this program. So first and foremost, this is not reactive. The governing bodies in both the towns are not reacting to the incidents that happened at Maplewood Middle School or Columbia High School and a series of other concerns that have been brought up recently. This is our way of being very proactive in how law enforcement works with our school district. One thing that we heard, obviously, from the parents and stakeholders is that all of us need to do a much better job collaborating together and not waiting for something to happen to loop in the appropriate authorities to work with them, to work with the students, to work with the parents, administrators, staff, etc. So just a little backstory is, and I learned a lot of this information speaking with the teachers and the administrators in the district, is that there was at one point in time a school resource officer. The school resource officer had an office in the schools, was able to go to sporting events, activities, work with the students. It was a proactive way of really integrating law enforcement into the school's community. After discussion with Mayor DeLuca, obviously working with our police department, I'm sure he spoke with the Maplewood Police Department, we all spend a great deal on public safety in our community. To have one dedicated person who is in charge of working with our schools, working with the administrators, parents, students, staff, etc., is an appropriate thing to do, and it's much needed in our district right now. Throughout this process, a memorandum of understanding is created between the municipalities, the police department, and the school board, assigning what the responsibilities of the officer will be. Basically highlighting where the opportunities are, where the officer will best fit in within the school's community, and I leave that to the Board of Education to be able to convey where the officer, whether it be a male or female, would best be utilized within the schools. So this is just to reinforce to parents, this is not reacting. This isn't somebody who stands at the door and tries to intimidate people. It's quite the opposite. We hope that a school resource officer can work on things ranging to addressing violence, gun violence, gang activity. Also, DARE used to be very popular. While this isn't a DARE officer, from an educational standpoint, any one of our law enforcement could speak to drugs and some of the things associated with that. There's also things regarding harassment. I mean, it's just a series of things that our law enforcement does, and public safety is a very big umbrella, and wherever the challenges and opportunities are, I would anticipate that the school board and the administrators would work with our school resource officer to address those issues. So the grant application, again, it is just a grant application. The deadline was last week, so we wanted to take advantage of applying for the grant, keeping our fingers crossed that hopefully we are able to get that grant funding. As Trustee Rosner indicated, it is 75% covered through the grant, up to $125,000 with a 25% match from the municipalities, which was our way of showing the school district that we're interested in working together on public safety matters. Also, from a very personal standpoint, as the former chair of our Public Safety Committee in South Orange, our community relations functions have been expanding a lot. In fact, if you look to Neighborhood Watch and the work that Janine Buckner has done working with PD, I think a lot of the success that we've seen in the numbers of crime, Part 1 crimes going down, is because we have such a strong relationship between our law enforcement and our Neighborhood Watch organization. Along those lines, under the leadership of Sergeant Adrian Acevedo, look at the programs such as the Coffee with a Cop program that was introduced. You could also look at the positive behavior citations that are currently being given out to youth all throughout South Orange when officers see them do something good in town, and they issue positive behavior citation redeemable for a slice of pizza or cup of ice cream from Cold Stone Creamery, and currently, just the Junior Police Academy that the police department runs. And every year we have a national night out that brings all the folks in our community together with law enforcement. So I think we kind of have a history of looking at community policing models, enhancing community relations between law enforcement and our community in general. And I think that providing a school resource officer to the school district, which is such a critical and just central role to both of our two towns, is appropriate and necessary. So I just want to clarify some of the concerns about a school resource officer, what their roles and responsibilities entail, and obviously welcome parents and stakeholders to continue giving us feedback on where you think these opportunities are for partnerships between our South Orange Police Department and our school district.
Madam President, I really want to commend you for following up on this initiative, and I'd just like to just add a little more context to it. I got a sense of resource officers and their role in the past from Joanna
Right.
Wright, thank you. Joanna Wright. She said that this was something that existed for many, 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 many years and was eliminated from the environment. And I received an email, and you probably were copied over on it, from a individual who was concerned that why are we putting police in our schools and environment, and you laid out very clearly that this is about community, building relationships, having the resource officer there to build a relationship with the students to know what's going on in the environment. And another thing that Joanna Wright brought up that was so very interesting, which probably won't happen, but there was another part of people who were part of the school community who also was an heir or could see and hear things. Those were our, believe it or not, the janitors who were full-time employees in the school environment, and that's now been outsourced. So a lot of relationships, be it a resource officer who was a safety or police officer, the janitors, and all other people who were in the environment to build relationships could hear and see things and be almost like a canary in a mine to be ahead of anything that could happen. So with this initiative that Madam President just articulated, having a resource officer in, I just think that is really important again and again, because we can dispel the perception that we're putting police officers in the school. This is just a community outreach effort that this resource officer role, he or she will play in that environment. And I think that's so important to make sure that we communicate that clearly, that is the role, is communication and building relationships.
Are there any questions on that front? Any other questions for Acting Public Safety Committee Chair?
We meet tomorrow night, 6:30.
Tomorrow night, 6:30, Public Safety, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank our administrator, Mr. Lewis, for putting together an exceptional grant application on behalf of the township. I think we all know that Mr. Lewis is probably one of the best grant writers within the region, so I'm very confident that hopefully this will go our way. We'll be able to add somebody in this role, and thank you very much, Mr. Lewis, for your work on that grant application. All right, moving on to our second public comment period. Again, just a reminder, please state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes to speak. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to address the Board of Trustees? All right, I'd like to close this public comment section of our agenda. Is there any new business? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Good meeting. See everyone next Monday, the 29th.